Well, hey there, and welcome to my channel. I'm Crafty Kathy, and I am so happy and thankful that you stopped in to craft and spend a little time with me today. I have some beautiful Christmas decor that you're not going to believe came from the thrift store, and some of it is my old Christmas decorations that I pulled back out so I can revamp and make them new again. So, I hope that I give you some inspiration to maybe pull out some of your old stuff and make it whatever you want it to be again. Just work your magic, and I promise you can do it. Also, you can go by the thrift store and grab some of that stuff and make it whatever you want it to be. That's what I like about thrifting. But enough of my blabbing. Let's get into the DIYs. The first DIY is a lighted birdhouse. I got this birdhouse at Goodwill a few years ago, and I've just been holding on to it for the right DIY, and I believe it's time to pull it out and get it going. As you see, the paint job is a little questionable, but the structure is still in great shape. And you'll see here, whenever I flip it over, on the bottom part, it says 99 cents from Goodwill. And then the other tag says Art Minds, and it says distributed by Michaels. So it came from Michaels, the craft store, originally. Now the vision that I have for this birdhouse is to just look like a beautiful classic barn. We're going to use the color Marquee, which is the perfect red Christmas color. It's by DIY Paint. And DIY paint's my favorite because it's clay-based, it's very thick, it just goes on nice and smooth. Now, I live in Tennessee, and I'm a sucker for a beautiful barn. So I wanted it to be this glorious red barn color and have a beautiful black top on it. Now, if you'll notice, this birdhouse is already painted red in some spots, but it's just faded. And like I said, you know, a paint job is a very fast and affordable way to spruce up some of your old decor and just give it new life and bring that brightness back to it so that you can use it again and again. Now it's time to paint the roof. And I'm going to use this new black color that I haven't tried yet. It's Little Black Dress, and it's also by DIY Paint. And by the way, if you guys want to try out any of these DIY paints or the ILD products, the Pent Art, some of the decoupage papers that I use, I get my crafting supplies from Lori over at Milton's Daughter, or most of my craft supplies come from her. A lot of them come from Dollar Tree and Amazon also, but I always get my paints and such like that from Lori. So I'm going to leave her information down below in case you want to try some of it. But I can just about guarantee you, if you ever tried DIY paint, you probably would never use any other paint. I find that it's very cost effective just simply because it just takes one coat. So you're using a whole lot less paint than you would with a cheaper brand. So in the long run, if you ask me, you're saving money. I paid special attention to get up under all of the eaves because I wanted this piece to be 100% finished. I want it to look like something that just came straight from Hobby Lobby or, you know, Pottery Barn or some nice store where we go and look at the decor and we just think it's so beautiful, but you don't really want to shell out that kind of money. You know what I'm saying? You would never believe by the time that I finish this house that I'm going to have about $5 into it. And I made sure that I painted all those little, I guess you call them stoops, or the little perches that the birds would be on there. I painted all those black also. If this is your first time ever coming to my channel, I want to say welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I would love for you to subscribe and become a part of our family. And if you're enjoying this video so far, please give me a big thumbs up because it really helps me out on YouTube. So far, this little birdhouse looks amazing. So the next thing I'm going to do is pull out my cardinals. I got these this year at Hobby Lobby. They're normally $14.99, but you know everything's half off. So I only paid around $7.50 for these. And there is 6 or 7 little cardinals in there. They're kind of heavy. They're actually ornaments, but we're not going to use these as ornaments right now. We're going to put them on our little house. But I do want to take those eye hooks out of them since we're not using them as ornaments. It's really easy to take out. All you have to do is just unscrew it from the back real quickly for both ornaments. And then I'm going to take my Loctite Power Grab and some Titebond Quick and Thick. I'm going to use both of these because I want a really good hold on these. I'm going to put one strip down one side and one beside it. I don't want them to touch. And just a little bit of hot glue also. And my first little cardinal is going to go on the very top of the house. I'm going to follow up with the second cardinal by doing the exact same thing. One little strip of the Loctite Power Grab and one strip of the Titebond Quick and Thick. And then just a little bit of hot glue, and he's going to go right on the side. And then I left them alone for about 3 hours so that they could bond and get a good seal there. And look how beautiful my little birdhouse is so far. You would never believe that I paid 99 cents for this thing at Goodwill. I love to use these little mini picks. They're at the Dollar General. You get 2 of these little picks in one pack for just $1. But they have these old cheap plastic pine cones in the middle of them that I don't like. So what I'm going to do is use these tiny clippers and cut those pine cones off. And we're going to put some real ones on there. I got these pine cones from the Dollar Tree. And it's literally like a long wire with little tiny pine cones stuck on it with wires. So I just clipped the wires off because we don't need those. I'm going to put some hot glue on the backs of the pine cones and set them down so that they can adhere. I put them side by side, and I always add one more berry to these because for some reason 3 red ones are on one side and then the other side just has 1 on every pick. It drives me crazy. So I put that extra little red berry on there, and we are going to lay the house down and just use hot glue to adhere this right in the center. I'm going to add these 2 small wreaths, and I get these in a pack at Hobby Lobby. I think there's about 8 little wreaths in there, and they end up being about $1.25, $1.50. To be honest, I get a lot of my small embellishments like these at Hobby Lobby because you end up paying about the same price as you do at the Dollar Tree, and the quality is way superior. So don't overlook Hobby Lobby and think that it's going to cost more because, like I said, sometimes I find things actually cheaper than Dollar Tree. All right, so we're going to grab our Pent Art Snow Paste. I am so in love with this stuff right here. And you can get this from Lori over at Milton's Daughter. I'm going to leave her information down below in case you want to try some of this. Or if you want any of the DIY paint, the IOD products, a lot of the more high-end type craft supplies that I use are from Milton's Daughter. And what I mean by high end is not like expensive. I mean like the really good stuff, you know. So this stuff is so easy to use. I just put some of it in a paintbrush, and I love the way it looks when you just run it through those pine cones. All you have to do is literally kind of touch the object that you're wanting to make look like it's been snowed on, and it achieves that effect every time. Now, there's really not any glitter to this snow paste. It is just a white paste, and it looks like snow. And I absolutely love it. Here, I'm just adding it on my little wreath. I'm dabbing it on those red berries because it looks like snow just fell on it. And then I thought, now, if we've got a little house out in the wilderness and these little birds are just sitting there, you know it snowed on them. So then I started adding the snow paste all over the house, everywhere that snow would land. And I don't rub this on like I'm painting. I almost just kind of dab it on because I like the way that it looks better. It just, to me, looks like real snow has just drifted onto the house, you know, overnight or whatever. I made sure to put it on all the little eaves and everywhere where snow would just naturally fall. And man, it's just so gorgeous. And the very last thing that I'm going to do is light this beautiful house up. I can't think of anything that would be more beautiful than this sitting by the fireplace with a little glow inside. So I'm going to use my own For You lights that I get off of Amazon. They're in my Amazon store. And I just take a small drill bit and I made a hole in that top part of the house and in the bottom part of the house, just big enough that I could stick the string lights through. So all you do is just unwind your little lights, and then I just slid them right through that hole, and they're going to be so easy to disguise. But I want to make sure that my battery pack is on the outside, because that way I can turn it on every evening and just sit and look at the beautiful light inside this house. I'm going to make sure that I glue that battery pack with the little screw compartment sticking up. That way, if I ever need to change the batteries, I've got it right there and it's easy and accessible, and I can just change the batteries and never lose my light. So I put it in the top little portion and glued my light on that back eave, and I'm doing the exact same thing at the bottom. I'm going to glue my little battery pack right on the back of the house, and the only thing that your company is going to be asking is how much money you had to spend on this beautiful piece of decor. But we'll never tell them it was all under $5. I hope you like this one.
Merry Christmas, baby. Reindeer's coming out to play. Santa Claus is packing the presents, making sure you've been behaving okay. Merry Christmas, honey. Yeah. The snowman's dusting off his.
The second DIY is a remake of this beautiful reindeer. Now, I've had this guy for quite a while, and as you can tell, he is way out of style. Now, he's beautiful, but he's also very gold, and we're going to change him up. We're going to do one of my favorite techniques that I've been doing for the past few years with some of my older decorations. I think it turns out beautiful, and it's very classic, and it always looks good. Now, the first thing that I have to do is take off all of this metal leaf motif that he's got around his neck. That just really dates this guy. It really screams kind of like 1980s to me. I don't know. So I just went in with some of my cutters, and it was very easy to get this off. Most of the decorations that have like metal pieces like this on it, they're very easy to just clip off, and so you kind of have a clean slate, and you can just start over and make him what you want him to be. In some spots where I had to pull it up, it would leave like a little rough spot, but I just took my cutters and kind of beat it in that one little spot to make it go back down. I did not want my grandbabies cutting their fingers on this thing and having to go get a doggone tetanus shot or something over my reindeer creation. So we're going to take him outside, and with just a little spray paint, you're going to see he's going to be such a handsome debonair man when we're finished. Once again, you see my high-tech spray table I've made here with the top of a tote, and hey, it don't matter, it works. We're going to use the Rust-Oleum 2x Ultra Matte in the color black, and this is the first step that you're going to do. Now, you are going to totally cover your reindeer in the black, and if you'll notice, you don't get up close to him. That's the best way to spray paint, is kind of stay about 8 to 10 inches away from the object. I always do a quick little spritz before I actually spray the object to make sure that my spray paint's not going to come out in like clumps, or, you know, that it's going to spray nicely. And so I just sprayed him front, back, and underneath, and I did a full black coat, and I'm not even going to let it dry before I hit the next step. And please ignore my messy craft porch because it's always a mess. I have stuff spilling out onto my front porch here that I just can't fit into my craft room. The second step is you take a half and half solution of vinegar and water. Mine is that brownish color because it's apple cider vinegar. It's all I had. So you do 1 part vinegar, 1 part water, and you're going to mist it over your reindeer while the black paint is still wet. Now, as you see, I made sure before I squirted it that I don't want like a straight line squirting out. I want it to mist and fall on him in those big droplets that almost look like droplets, like bubbles. You see how it's coming out? And that's exactly what you want. You can see it laying on top of your reindeer. And I'm so embarrassed that my porch is this messy, but guys, I had to show you this technique because it's just beautiful. The next thing you do while it's all still wet is take a metallic copper color. I'm using the Rust-Oleum metallic, and I didn't have just regular copper. I only had copper rose. So I said, okay, I'm not buying anything else. We're going to make this work. And this color, you're going to mist it on him. You're not going to spray it. You're just lightly going to mist it like I'm doing here and letting it just fall on him. And you do this to however your liking is. If you want a whole bunch of that copper color, then use a lot. But if you want just little touches like I'm doing here, you just lightly spritz it all over your reindeer. And he is going to be perfect. Don't worry about it being wet, nothing. Just spritz it. And then we've got one more quick step and we're done. Now the very last step is I grab that vinegar and water solution again, and you're just going to mist it one more time. You can do it just a little bit. You can do it a lot. It all depends on your liking. I just sprayed it a pretty good amount, and I left it alone for about 30 minutes out in the sun. Now, I'm in Tennessee, and this day, I think it was around 30 to 40 degrees, somewhere between there. I just left it out there for about 30 minutes, and it was good to go. You bring him inside and look at just the big difference already in this reindeer. He's so pretty. You can see the little droplets where the copper color just like lays on it, and it makes it so pretty. I think the thing that makes it so beautiful is that vinegar and water just does something to it, and it kind of breaks the paint down and makes it look different. I really don't know. I just know it's a pretty outcome. And to be honest, the way it looks doesn't even pick up on camera because it's so much prettier in person. Now we're going to grab our antique gold rub and buff. This is the last step to make him the hottest trend of 2023. And what I like to do is just lay down a small bit of wax paper. You're not going to need much of this rub and buff. I just put a little bit of it out on my wax paper, and I get it all over the end of my brush, kind of like I'm dry brushing, just a very little bit on there. And it's a very subtle difference, but it is a difference, and it just makes all the difference. It's beautiful. So you go around and touch the reindeer anywhere that you want for there to be a little, highlight or a little touch of gold. What I did was go all the way around this reindeer, and that little bit of rub and buff that I put on is making its way all the way around this reindeer, and it actually covered one full side. Look how beautiful it does the tail. It's just a small little subtle difference, but it's so pretty. I really paid special attention to the ears. I wanted them to have a lot of gold, and I paid special attention to the antlers. I wanted them to have gold all the way around them because it's so pretty when you mix these three colors together. I'm not sure who came up with this technique, but man, I really do appreciate it. So I just go all the way around these antlers, And my favorite part was his hooves. With just using that little bit that I had in my brush, you can see me going around the hooves here, and it changed them to a beautiful gold color. And just that little bit of highlight, you wouldn't think makes that much of a difference, but when you step back and look at your project as a whole, it really does make all the difference. The next thing that I'm going to do is take some of this homespun. I get this at Hobby Lobby, and it says homespun on the spool that I get it from. It's very inexpensive, and I usually get about a yard at Christmas time because I love the way that it just rips like this. You can put a cut in it and rip it all the way down, and it just gives this kind of raggedy, very nice look to it. I really like it. And I made him a little scarf and just tied it around his neck. Then the next thing that I did was go through all of my buttons. Now, 99% of my buttons are from Dollar Tree. They're usually up around the checkout lane at my Dollar Tree. And I always like to put one larger one and then a little bit of a smaller one kind of on the side of that first button. I just like that look. I love the look of buttons. I just think it gives it just a nice homey feel. I don't really know any other way to describe it, but I love to use buttons in my decor anyways, you guys know. And I just put a little dab of glue down just to hold that scarf exactly where I wanted it. Now, I have this little holiday pick that I got at Walmart the other day. It was just $1.28, and I love the way it looks. It looks like eucalyptus with a beautiful glitter on it. And you guys know how I am about glitter. I just can't help myself. At Christmas time, I like it. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue behind the buttons and pop these little pieces in there. I did take that little clipper that I've got and cut these pieces down. It's okay to do that. Cut your pieces down. You don't have to use that whole big long pick, because if you do, it's going to look funny anyways. All I needed was just a little bit to give it that little, you know, something special, I guess you would say. And I got these little berry picks the other day at Hobby Lobby. They were $2.50, and it's just several of these little, like, they're wires, and they've got these small little cones on them, and they're just really pretty. I like them to use them as, you know, just small little embellishments here and there. I cut the end of it off because we didn't need all that extra wiring, and I just put it right in behind that little button, right in the middle of my two little green picks, and it made all the difference. It was such a subtle little change in this guy, but it took him from being a 1980s reject to a gorgeous deer ready for this Christmas season. And the very last thing I did was rub a little bit of that rub and buff that I had left in my paintbrush across my little buttons, just to give them a little glitz from that gold. The last DIY is quick and easy, but it made a big difference in this piece of decor. I've had this thing for the longest time. I had purchased it at a thrift store about a year ago, I guess. It was originally $6, and I know that sticker is from the Dollar General, but I only paid $2 for it. I like the way that it had the leather pieces holding the top there. So we're just going to totally remake this and make it something different. The first thing we're going to do is some paint. I grabbed crinoline, which is a DIY paint color, and I just gave this 2 quick coats. Now, I did have to give this 2 coats simply because that black M was shining through after I did my first coat. But I did the top and sides and the back and just made sure that everything was covered nicely. And once I got everything painted and dried, we're going to play with some stamps. I'm going to use my vintage textures. I love this stamp. It's IOD. It has 4 different stamps to it, and they are different textures like crackle, distressed. I personally do not like to do crackle. You don't see me do it much on my channel. It takes too much time. There's too many steps. I'm lazy in the way that I would rather just stamp it up and pop my little stamp on there and boom, I have crackle. And I'm just going to leave my stamp on this piece that it's on. And you see I just put a little bit of the archival ink on it. That's the ink that I use. It's permanent, so I like it because of that. It's not going to smear. And then I just kind of went around my whole piece and added some lighter portions and some darker portions. And it looks like I sat there and worked on a crackle. Now this stamp is called Christmas Puppies, and I love it. Or Christmas Pups, I'm sorry. I absolutely love the little puppy dogs on this one, but you know I had to pick the one with the little smushed face because it looks like my little Tuffy Tater. So that's the one that we're going to put on here. I inked him up, and I'm sorry that I'm a little off camera there, but all I'm doing is putting the ink on my stamp, and I decided to leave him on this piece too. And I just stamp him down. And when you lay your stamp down, you're committed. You don't want to move it around. You use one hand to hold it still and the other hand to kind of walk over it so you make sure it's pressed down really well. Now we're going to grab our next stamp. And this one is Christmas Kitties. I've not used this one before, but if you are a cat lover, honey, this is the stamp for you. It's so cute. Now, like I said, I've never used this one before. And the very first time that you use your IOD stamps, you need to run some sandpaper over it just to make sure that you're going to get a good, clear stamp and that there's not anything in the way. Now, I didn't happen to have a sanding sponge, so I had to use my little finger sander, but it's okay. I used a 220 grit, and I just go over them one direction and then the opposite direction. You only have to do this the very first time that you use these stamps, and then you never have to do it again. I picked the little kitty cat that had the Christmas tree beside him, and I inked up my little kitty cat, and I'm just going to put him right beside my little French bulldog. When you're doing these stamps, it's the same thing every time. You just lay it down and hold it still with one hand, and the other hand, you kind of walk your fingers over it to make sure that it's going to get, you know, a good color to it. And I love the way that their stamps come out because they do have like a lighter areas, darker areas, and they're so pretty. But I want to show you this little technique. I just grabbed some of my gypsy green. It's my favorite Christmas tree color by DIY Paint. And you see the little branches there. And I'm not getting them perfectly. I'm just kind of getting around the areas where the Christmas tree is. It doesn't have to be colored in perfectly. I'm just going around it. I had the color crinoline still in my paintbrush, and I kind of went over the kitty cat. Now, I'm not going over the whole area that I stamped because I still want to be able to see where I stamped it, and that'll make sense in just a minute. I'm going to use faded burlap on my puppy dog because he's a good close color to the color that my pug is, even though this is a French bulldog. but it's a little smushy faced dog. I love them. And so I'm just going around and getting the gist of his color. And then I grabbed Carnival Red, which is a very bright red color. And those two little Christmas ornaments that's hanging on the tree, I'm just going to blot them real quick. Then I dry it and make sure everything is nice and dry. And then for some crazy reason, I did not film myself doing the second part. But all I did was take the exact same stamp and put it down once again in the exact same location, one over the puppy and one over the kitty cat. And what happens is where I colored that in, then I stamp over the top of it, and it just really makes it pop. And you can really see the colors that I put in. I didn't want this to be bright and crazy. I just wanted it to be something where you could see the puppy and kitty cat. Then we're going to ink Merry Christmas on here, but my stamps weren't sticking very well. So actually some of my subscribers showed me how to do this. You take a little bit of spray adhesive and spray it on, and then you put your stamps on there, and it's going to hold those stamps so they're not going to fall whenever I flip it over. And this is an IOD stamp from a few years ago, and it simply says Merry Christmas. Then I inked it up really good with some red ink that I had actually gotten from a thrift store. I hope that this is permanent ink, but I'm not 100% sure. It just says Merry Christmas, and it's in very pretty writing. I'm going to make sure I don't have any ink on the extra areas because we don't want it to look crazy. This is going to go to my grandson because he loves puppies and kitties, and I thought it would be cute for him. He could stick this on his little door handle or whatever, and he's going to absolutely love it. So I do the exact same thing. I lay it down, and then with one hand, I am pressing to make sure that I'm going to get a good adhesion. Then you're just going to pull your stamp up and see how pretty that is. Merry Christmas. And then I'm going to use my Distress Oxide in the color called Gathered Twigs. And I love to just go around the edges because it's just going to kind of shadow it in and, you know, give it a little something extra. I went all the way around my piece here. Then I took my paintbrush that still had the color crinoline on it, and just to kind of soften it back down, I went all over the picture. And I also added that Distress Oxide very lightly around the bottom and just to kind of shadow the top and the little handle that holds this piece. Now we're going to make a little bow for the top and finish it off. This is some more homespun that I got last year, and I love these colors. I'm going to have to go back and get some more. I'm just making a very simple bow. I put my bow in like a cause bow kind of shape, and then you just push the back of it down and it creates a beautiful little bow. Then I'm just going to grab some of my jute. I'm going to cut it off and tie it around the middle of my bow. Then I'm just going to find my placement where I want my bow, and I wanted it to kind of be catty-cornered at the top. I put a little dab of glue and put the bow down. I didn't want the tails to cover up where it said Merry Christmas, so I put a little bit of glue down. I'm taking these small little snippers, and I'm just cutting off some of that eucalyptus and making it small pieces once again. And we're going to stick these in behind where the bow is. Then I'm going to take one of my little rusty bells that I got from Temu, and I'm going to place it right in the center of the bow. And I like this little snowflake. It is a mold that I made from the Blitz mold. It's an IOD mold that came out last year, and I had made it previously. And so I just put it down because I like to make, when I'm making my molds, I like to make extras. That way if I'm in a hurry, I can grab one like here and just use it really quick. And I put a couple more pieces of the eucalyptus down. I took a black permanent marker and I went over those places at the top because they were gold. The little pins that's holding the leather down was gold. And I didn't like that. I wanted them to be black. So I just colored them in with that permanent marker. And I followed up by going around all the edges of this little piece with that black permanent marker. I just like the way that it looks. It just gives it a little something extra. And then the last step, I couldn't help myself. I couldn't go through one video without putting some doggone glitter on something. So I used a little bit of spray adhesive and just a little bit of glitter. My grandson's gonna love it.
Christmas is just around the corner, coming up just around the bend. Holiday couldn't be here sooner. Holiday for family and friends. And we've got pine tree, pine cone, evergreen, mistletoe, candy cane, Santa Claus, a gingerbread woman and a gingerbread man in a gingerbread house and all. Christmas is just around the corner.
If you stuck with me through this whole video, I just want to say thank you and I appreciate you so much. I hope I gave you a little bit of inspiration and maybe pull out some of them old tacky Christmas decorations that you've got laying around. I know you've got them in totes out in your garage, honey, because we all do. Just pull them out and give them a new coat of paint. And like I said, work your magic. And baby, you can turn them into something beautiful and reuse them. Now, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, you make sure you hit that little red button. I don't want you leaving here without becoming a part of our family and coming back to sit a spell with us. Also, if you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up because it really helps me out on YouTube. They'll push my videos out there to people who've never seen me before, and I greatly appreciate it. My videos right now are every Monday and Thursday at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and I hope to see you in the next, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. And if you did enjoy this type of content, I've got one right here that I think that you'll like that's very similar. All you have to do is just click onto that video and it'll take you there when this one's finished. And did you know that you can click onto my face right here and subscribe? You can. I'll see you soon. God bless you.